Can you guys believe it? This is the fourth podcast I have released inside of a month. I tell you, I have turned a corner, actually. Welcome to the Dirt Bike Channel podcast. This is the month of March, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we need to stop doing as dirt bike riders, or at least like off-road enthusiasts, you know, enduro riders, trail riders, that kind of thing. Weekend warriors, if you want to call it that way. If you want to support this podcast, the best way to do it is to use my links for Rocky Mountain ATV. You can find those links over at my website, dirtbikechannel.com. And if you do that here in the month of March, you can also be entered automatically to win 2 different dirt bikes that I'm giving away. I have had an interesting month with these with this giveaway, and I'm probably going to have to change the way I'm doing the giveaways in the future. But as of right now, you still, if you're listening to this in March 2024, you can still get entered to win the 2024 KTM 250XC and the 2024 Beta 250RR that I'm giving away. And we're going to do 10X on all your orders today. Well, I mean, until the end of the month, until midnight on March 31st. So head over to my website, dirtbikechannel.com, grab yourself something over there, or like I said, click the links for Rocky Mountain ATV. Order anything you want from them. They're the best in the business. Their return policy is awesome. They're great, and you cannot beat them. So price, selection, service, all that stuff, Rocky Mountain ATV, they're awesome. Use my affiliate links. You'll find them in the description of this podcast and on the description of basically all my YouTube videos and on my website, dirtbikechannel.com. Also, stick around for the end of the podcast. I may give you a little quick synopsis of another project that I'm working on, another podcast. If you're interested in more podcast content, you can listen to that at the end, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm doing on the side. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things we need to stop doing. I have, conversations with people all the time about dirt bikes and what's happening and what people are riding and what people are buying and what they're putting on their bikes and all these things. And I just want to mention a few things that I think we can stop doing. I think we need to stop this notion or thinking that we can buy our way to becoming a better rider by buying things for our bike. You know, there are, with some exception, there are some things you can do that are like kind of make the bike more suited to you. But overall, we can't buy our way to being a better rider unless we're going to be spending money on training and stuff like that. So I'd like to stop seeing a lot of us buying a bunch of aftermarket parts and actually just invest in some training. So if you think that other bar bend is going to make you better, or you think that this ECU is going to make you better, let's stop doing that. Like, we're spending so much money in places that we don't need to. These bikes are so amazing for the most part. It doesn't matter what color it is. Your bike has more capability than you do is kind of the thing. And I just wish that we would stop thinking that we can buy our way to being better. We can purchase training, which will definitely help. But then the only thing, what's really going to make us better is by diligently working on our technique and getting training and then trying to incorporate that into our riding. And so I want to stop this notion and just nip it in the bud that you can buy something for your bike and be better. You need to buy something for you and be better. You can buy things for your bike and be more protected. Like if you have good helmet, good boots, those things are very, very important. But you can't buy yourself to become better at the sport. And it's one of the things. Nothing that I've done in my life that's been worthwhile has been easy. And it's one of the things I've loved about dirt bikes is how difficult and challenging it always is. So yeah. That's just my first thing I think we can stop doing. Stop thinking you can buy yourself to be better on the bike. The next thing I want to say that we should stop doing is we need to stop buying aftermarket parts thinking their bike isn't good. There are a number of companies, and I won't say who they are, but there are a number of companies that are pushing the narrative that your dirt bike, regardless of what color it is, that there's something wrong with it and that they have the solution. It's like these huge companies, KTM, Yamaha, whoever it is, Honda, they're spending millions of dollars developing these motorcycles. And they make decisions, and I'm not even saying that the decisions are always right, but they make decisions so that the bike can fit a wide variety of people. And then sometimes a bike will come out and it'll be out for like a month or two or even less. And then there's some company that's like, hey, guess what? We just figured out your bike sucks. And it sucks because of this one thing. And it's this huge problem. And you need to like replace this part. And guess what? We have the part that you need to replace it with. It's anywhere from $100 to $2,000. And your bike isn't good unless you put this part on it. I have so many conversations with people that think they've just bought this anywhere from $8,000. They've written an $8,000 to a $14,000 check, depending on what bike they bought and where they bought it, and if it was special edition or if it was whatever. And then immediately they have this notion that like, oh, the ECU sucks, or the injection system sucks, or the oil pump sucks, or it's got the wrong size piston because I saw it on, some YouTube video, or I saw it on some Instagram post that like it's the wrong size piston, or this is definitely going to happen, or that's definitely going to happen, and my bike isn't good in its stock form. Here's what I'm saying, guys. These bikes are amazing in their stock form, almost without exception, and you don't need to buy any aftermarket parts to make them good. It is probably a good idea to buy some protective parts for your bike, but I don't think it needs an ECU upgrade. I don't think it needs a piston upgrade. I don't think it needs a head upgrade. I don't think it needs, insert thing. I don't know. Like, you might want different bars, or you might want different bar risers, but it's not that they didn't put good stuff on the bike. Here's a one exception. Maybe you bought a motocross bike and maybe it has just a standard chain that isn't sealed, but even in that case, I'm like, ride the bike for a little while, like wear that part out and then, or, put some time on it and then go through and get an O-ring chain or whatever. But like, some of those parts are like wear parts. But when you think, if you are in this notion that let's say you bought a KTM 2-stroke or whatever, and you're like, well, I know I have to do this because the bike sucks unless I do it. Or I have this Yamaha thing and I know I have to get a different ECU, or this Honda thing and I know this doesn't work on the bike. They're all really, really good. And we need to stop thinking that our bikes are not good without aftermarket parts, because they are. They're really great. And the less is more. I just think like less is more. People are putting so many things on these bikes. And I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just, I'm just a simple guy. And I think that I would rather spend my money on gas and tires. And so I think we need to stop thinking that these bikes need aftermarket parts or they're not good. Perfect segue into something else I think we need to stop doing. And that is, we need to stop running our tires until they look worn out. Guys, you'll never wear out a front tire. Like, it is possible to wear out a rear tire, but it's not really even possible to wear out a front tire. I don't want to like name any names, but there are some people that are running these. First off, it's one thing to run your rear tire too long. Like, it's been a long time since I've put more than 20 hours on any tire. Tires are where the rubber meets the road. No pun intended. I mean, pun intended. And there's no better bang for your buck than putting new, fresh tires, fresh rubber on your motorcycle, on your dirt bike. It is the best bang for the buck. You can get more you'll get a better bump in performance with new tires than you will with anything else. I do say, like, you need to have your bike set up properly for your weight. And I'm not trying to say that it isn't important to have the suspension properly tuned for you. But without, like, that aside, once you've got your bike kind of set up for you, gas and tires is really all you need. And I see way too many people running these tires way too long. Rear tires way too long. Front tires way too long. Here's what I look for in a front tire. If once those knobs, the side knobs, start to separate at all, if they even look like they're starting to separate from the rest of the carcass, bam, let's change that front tire for sure. I don't have to change the front tires as often as I do the rears, but I like to keep fresh rubber on the bikes, and I think we need to stop running these tires so long. When I see guys out on the trail and I see, some friends' bikes and things like this, some guys are running these tires way too long. They're running them 40, 50, 60 hours. Because like, oh, there's still a little life left in this thing. It's like, dude, but you have all this expensive stuff and you have a $1,000 upgrade head /ECU /whatever trinket on the bike, and you're scrimping on tires. You tried to squeeze 2 or 3 more horsepower out of your bike, but you don't have good rubber on it. It makes 0 sense to me. Absolutely 0 sense. So let's change those tires more often. And this is like, also, stop sending your tires to a tire shop. This is another problem, because one of the reasons why people are running tires too long is because they don't know how to change them, or they're not good at changing them, or they're not comfortable or confident changing them. And so they wait because it's a hassle. Like if you have to take the tire off the bike and send it down to a motorcycle shop, or drop your bike off at some motorcycle shop, and they're going to charge you an arm and a leg to do this, it's one of the things you got to figure out, man. Like, stop paying other people to do your tires. You gotta love this enough that you're going to go out there and bust out a tire in your garage and change this so that you can always have fresh rubber, or at least fresher rubber on your motorcycle, on your dirt bike. So stop running the tires too long. Stop paying other people to do it, because you need to remove any of these barriers to having fresh rubber on the bike, and having to take it to a shop is definitely a barrier. And I know some people are like, well, tires are expensive. Tires are not that expensive, especially if you look at mountain bike tires. You can spend more on mountain bike tires than you do dirt bike tires, and there's a heck of a lot more rubber on these dirt bike tires. So yeah, let's stop running our tires too long. Here's another one. Stop comparing yourself to others, okay? So this is an individual sport. We're in this, like, most of us are not getting paid to ride. I've never actually been paid to ride a dirt bike. Very few people have. And I even know, like, you may be in some race series or whatever, and you think, I'm getting paid to ride because, look, I won $1,000 or whatever. Yet you've never even broken even. Like, the number of people that have made money in dirt bikes made money riding dirt bikes is very small. Most people just, you bought a $10,000 motorcycle. How many races would you have to win in like these amateur races to even break even on that? You're not doing it, right? So stop comparing yourself to others. This is an individual sport. It's just, you're in this to have fun. And here's another one that has been getting to me recently, because I haven't ridden as much in the last couple of years. Just a lot of things have been going on. And so, like, a lot of my skills have kind of digressed, at least especially like for the soft enduro stuff, the hard enduro stuff, whatever. I haven't been doing it nearly as much. And so I'm like digressing in that part. And I find myself comparing myself to my past self. And man, I need to stop doing that, because it's easy for me to get discouraged. You might have heard this phraseology, or the phrase, comparison is the thief of joy. Like, when we start comparing ourselves, it's not a good thing. It feels bad. It feels icky. And if you compare yourself to other people, you can always get depressed by doing that, because there's always going to be somebody who's better than you, somebody who's riding more than you, and somebody's putting in more time than you. Or even somebody that just has more skill than you. And that's basically all of you guys. All of you guys have more skill than me. Because I've never been, the reason people have ever tuned into any of my stuff is not because I'm a good rider. It's just because I'm relatable. It's probably because I'm not a good rider, in a lot of ways, that people have tuned in. Because it's hard to relate to some of these like super, super talented riders who've been riding dirt bikes since they were fetuses. And it's never going to be a good thing for us to compare ourselves to like Eli Tomac or Jet Lawrence or Ken Roxon or Chase Sexton or Cooper Webb or Graham Jarvis or, Cody Webb or Colton Haker or any of these people, Manny Lettenbichler or anyone. It's not a good idea for us to start doing that, because it'll just get so... And I've done it. I've done it a ton. I've compared myself to my friends, to people that I know in the community. now I'm comparing myself to my kids, like Connor. I'm comparing to him, like I'm not as good as him on the track and stuff. And it's like, and that takes away from some of the joy of it. And I just want, it needs to be joyful. Our dirt bike experience needs to be joyful. And if we're always comparing ourselves, it's not going to be that good. And right now, the one that I'm struggling with the most is just comparing me to where I was 2 or 3 years ago and just feeling kind of discouraged about that. About like, well, I'm not, I haven't put in the time and I haven't put in the hours and look, I've lost a step here and I've lost a step there and I'm not anywhere near as good as what is that Toby Keith song? Like, I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. I don't think I'm as good once as I ever was, but you get the point. So I think we need to stop comparing ourselves. Stop it. Okay. All right. Here's another one. Stop blaming things you can't do on the bike. Okay. I noticed this. I was looking back through my, some of the podcasts that I've done over the last years. And while I was thinking about doing this podcast, and I had this one podcast that I did where it was like, why aren't my forks deflecting as much? I have a little bit different thing. Like there are some people that ride, and you might know some of these guys, you may have ridden with them before, where they're always constantly complaining about their suspension. And they're complaining that their forks are doing this and their shock is doing this and it's deflecting and it's this and it's that. I've never really been that guy that blames so much on the bike. I mean, there are certain things, like if I'm riding a 454 stroke, I'm going to blame the bike because it's going to stall really easily. I'm going to blame the bike on that one. But if I'm not riding in an environment where that bike wasn't designed for, like a 450 motocross bike is not designed for hard enduro. So I can't really even blame the bike. This is just about me being able to adapt. And that's my point is, yeah, if you're reviewing a bike, it's one thing, but just you go out there and riding the bike, just ride the dang thing and don't blame the bike for your inability to ride. Most of this is just really about you. You've got to adapt to the bike. You've got to adapt to the terrain. You've got to adapt to the conditions, and you've got to adapt to the suspension. So if you're not going to be able to change the valving of your forks while you're out there on the ride. You're not going to be able to change the motor. So stop blaming things on the bike. Stop blaming things you can't do on the bike, and just get better. Now, there are certain things that I'm going to say, okay, here's some caveats to this. Here's some exceptions to the rule. When I was out riding the Starkvarg for the first and only time that I've ridden it so far, as this podcast has been out, I can't really do a pivot turn on that bike because I don't have a clutch to okay, you can use the throttle on that bike to pop the wheel up, but you don't get to then immediately pull the clutch out so that you don't go forward. So it's like the bike wants to go out from under you on like a pivot turn because you don't get to pull the power out immediately with your clutch finger. Because it's just like, even though you let off the gas, the bike still has that forward momentum. It's hard to arrest the forward momentum. And so I am blaming that on the bike because it doesn't have a clutch. But like I'm saying, if you're doing some hill climb, the reason why you can't get up the hill is probably not because of the bike. If you have like a standard enduro, KTM 300 or whatever, or just even a bike that has a clutch and you're trying to double blip, if you can't get over a log, it's not because the bike can't do it, it's because you can't do it. So stop blaming the bike. Stop blaming the suspension. You can adapt. And part of this, and so much of what we're doing in riding, is just adapting to the bike, adapting to the terrain, adapting to the conditions, and using our bodies, getting in their proper position, using proper technique, using proper throttle control in order to do some of these maneuvers that we're trying to do. And most of it is you and not the bike. I can't tell you how many times I've just watched better riders do things on my bike that I wasn't able to do. It's all about, most of it is about you. It's not about the bike, so we need to invest in training with ourselves. Like I was talking about at the beginning, you can't buy your way to being a better rider, other than you kind of can, because now I'm contradicting myself. You can buy training, And that's an investment in you. And I think that that's what we need to be doing. We need to be doing more investment in us with our skills and our mindset and our fitness. And then, then we're not blaming it on the bike. It goes back to the whole, like, is my fork deflecting? Well, maybe I should just like have the front end lighter. Like, I think about these times when I've hit like some ledge or some rock or whatever, and it's like, if it deflects, I'm just like, oh dang, I shouldn't do, like, I should watch that and know that and steer into that, or like, compress just a little bit and then de-weight the pegs right when I go over that thing, so that, I'm not going to, there's a lot of things we can do with our technique that are going to make the bike and make our experience so much better. So stop blaming things that you can't do on the bike. Most of this is about you. So those are some of the things I want to do. I just wanted to mention to you, hey, I want to bring more of you guys onto the podcast. It's been way too long since I've done an interview, and I want to do a lot more interviews and get people on, regular people that are riding bikes. Go onto my website. If you want to be a guest and you've got a cool story, I want to hear about it. If you go to my website, dirtbikechannel.com, one of the menu options is contact. You can contact me on there and say, hey, I've got an idea for a podcast, or here's this thing. Here's what me and my buddies do. I would love to hear about that. I want to bring more people onto the podcast and have interviews. We can do it over Zoom, or if you're in Utah, maybe we may be able to, come and do it in studio. If you want to support what we're doing, use those links. Again, like I said, to Rocky Mountain ATV. You can find them on my website. You can get entered to win the 2 bikes that I'm giving away if you do this before the end of March here. So you can get that all over at dirtbikechannel.com. Lastly, I did say I would mention something that I'm doing. I have a different podcast that I have been working on. This has nothing to do with dirt bikes. It actually has to do with dating. Okay. So Dirt Bike Channel it's a family friendly project. I've got a lot of videos. I use clean language on here. This other project that I'm doing, we don't censor ourselves. We use adult language. We're talking about adult topics. We're talking about dating in middle age and how tricky that can be. As some of you know, I was divorced 2 years ago. And it's been an interesting journey in like trying to date in middle age. A lot of frustrating things, but a lot of lessons have been learned. And I have a podcast host that was gracious enough to like come and have some really difficult conversations with me. We've got 9 episodes that are being released weekly. It's called 3 Dates Later. You can check it out, 3dateslater.com. And we're just pumping these episodes out. And then we want to bring more people into the conversation and talk about some of the struggles that have happened. We also want to talk about successes. So there's a lot of nuances. Season 1 is just mainly me and Emily, that's her name, talking about kind of what happened with us, because we had 3 really, really good dates, and then we never made it to a 4th date. And then we sat down in front of cameras and microphones to try to figure out what in the heck happened, okay? And it was awkward at certain points. There are points where I don't look so good. There are points maybe where she doesn't look so good as far as like how we were handling ourselves and handling our business. But it is very enlightening and insightful, and I think it's indicative of what's happening today in dating in middle age or even in younger ages. But anyway, so go check that out if you are interested in additional pod content. But again, be warned, don't send me hate email because it's like we swear. Because you've been warned, it's adult themed, it's adult content, and it has nothing to do with dirt bikes. So you've been forewarned. And I waited until the very end of this podcast to even bring it up. So I'm just trying to cover all my bases there. So 3dateslater.com, check that out. And now back to your regularly scheduled program, dirtbikechannel.com. Go there and get entered to win these bikes that I'm giving away. And until next time, leave a single track. Thanks.